The night was quiet, but the battlefield still carried the smell of smoke and blood. The human soldier, tired and wounded, walked through the ruins of the alien camp. His boots pressed against broken metal and shattered stone, echoing in the silence. He thought he was alone, but something kept pulling him deeper into the shadows. It was not orders, not duty, but a strange feeling inside his chest, as if destiny itself guided his steps. He pushed aside a fallen gate and entered a chamber half buried in dust. The air was heavy, cold, and still. There, behind glowing bars of energy, he saw her, a figure sitting on the ground, chained, her head lowered. Her skin shimmered faintly, like starlight on water. Her eyes, when they rose to meet his, were full of fire and sorrow. For a moment, the soldier forgot the war, forgot his wounds, forgot everything but her gaze. She wore a collar of black steel, etched with symbols he could not read. The collar pulsed with red light, tightening with every breath she took. Her wrists were bound, her body weak, but her spirit felt unbroken. The soldier stepped closer, his weapon lowered. He whispered, almost to himself, "Who are you?" She did not answer at first, only stared, her silence heavier than words. Then, with a voice soft and sharp like a blade, she said, "I am no one, not anymore." The soldier's heart twisted, though he could not explain why. Something about her presence was more powerful than the ruins around them. She was not just a prisoner, she was something greater, something dangerous, something sacred. And though every instinct told him to walk away, his hands reached for the controls of the cage. The bars flickered, then vanished with a hiss. She did not move, only watched him with eyes that seemed to test his soul. He knelt before her, studying the collar. It was heavy, locked by alien tech, a symbol of slavery older than his world. He touched it, and pain shot through his fingers like fire. She gasped, but not in fear and warning. "You do not understand," she whispered. "This collar is not only a chain, it is a bond. Break it, and you will never be free again." The soldier hesitated, sweat sliding down his face. But he could not stand the sight of her bound. His hands shook, his mind screamed to stop, yet his heart pushed forward. With one final pull, the collar cracked. A surge of light burst from it, red turning to white, fire turning to starlight. The sound echoed like thunder, the ground trembling as the chain of power broke. The collar fell into pieces, scattering like dust across the floor. The alien girl gasped, her body trembling, her hands pressing against her neck where the mark of the collar had been. For the first time in years, she was free. But instead of joy, her eyes burned with something else, something strange. She looked at him, her voice low, filled with a weight he could not understand. "You should not have done that," she said. "Now you are bound to me, forever." The soldier stepped back, confusion flooding his mind. "I freed you," he said, his voice unsteady. "You owe me nothing." But she shook her head slowly, her chains gone but her gaze unbroken. "You tore the collar, and in my people's law, that means your soul and mine are one." Her voice carried both anger and sadness, as if this freedom was another kind of prison. "You think you released me, human, but you have claimed me, and I cannot escape it." Silence filled the chamber, broken only by the distant crackle of fire outside. The soldier felt the weight of her words press against his chest. He had not wanted a slave, not wanted a bond, but fate had chosen otherwise. The alien girl rose to her feet, weak but proud, her head no longer bowed. For a moment, they stood facing each other, enemies by war, strangers by birth, but now tied by something greater. Neither of them fully understood it yet. But deep inside, both knew that this night had changed everything. Her final words echoed in his mind as he turned toward the shadows. "From this moment, wherever you go, I will follow, not because I want to, but because I must." And though the soldier tried to deny it, some part of him felt the truth. Their destinies were no longer separate, no longer free. They were bound by chains no weapon could cut. And the war outside suddenly felt smaller than the storm now rising between them. The soldier stood frozen, the broken collar at his feet glowing faintly before fading into dust. The alien girl lifted her head, her silver hair falling across her face, her eyes glowing softly in the dark chamber. He felt her gaze sink deep into his soul, heavy and unshakable. It was not just the look of someone freed from chains. It was the look of someone who now carried a bond stronger than steel. She stepped closer, her movements slow, almost fragile, but there was a hidden power behind each step. Her hands trembled as she touched her bare neck, still feeling the phantom weight of the collar that had marked her for years. When she finally spoke, her voice was steady but sharp. "You should not have broken it," she whispered. "Do you even know what you have done?" The soldier shook his head, his voice low. "I only wanted to free you." Her lips curved into something that was not a smile, but a bitter truth. "Free me? No, human, you did not free me, you bound me." She raised her hand and pressed it against her chest, her eyes closing as if reciting an ancient oath. "In my people's law, in the ancient covenant written in blood and fire, the one who breaks the slave collar does not release the captive. He becomes the master." The soldier felt his stomach tighten, his breath catching in his throat. "I don't want a slave," he said, shaking his head. "I don't want this." But she stepped closer, her eyes blazing with strange fire. "It does not matter what you want, human. The bond is sealed. The law is older than empires, older than stars. My soul has been chained to yours, and I cannot break it." He looked at her, seeing not weakness but defiance, not fear but pride that even years of slavery could not crush. The word master lingered in the air between them like a curse. Yet when she spoke it, her voice cracked, as if it burned her tongue. "You are my master now, whether you wish it or not." The soldier clenched his fists, torn between anger and guilt. This was not what he wanted, not why he had touched the collar. He wanted to free her, to see her walk away into the night unchained. But instead he had shackled them both in a fate he could not understand. Before he could speak again, the chamber shook, the ground trembling beneath their feet. Outside, voices shouted in a language he did not know, heavy boots striking against stone. The alien girl's head snapped toward the doorway, her expression hardening. "They are coming," she said, her voice suddenly sharp and commanding. "The guards, the hunters, they will not let you leave with me alive." The soldier raised his weapon, his training rushing back like a cold wind. But before he could take aim, the girl stepped forward, her hand brushing against his arm. "Do not waste your fire," she whispered, her eyes glowing brighter now. "You do not yet know what I am capable of." He watched in silence as she lifted her chained wrists, the metal links glowing faintly. Then, with a sudden burst of strength, she pulled, the chains snapping like paper, the sound echoing through the chamber. The soldier stared in shock, realizing the collar had not only enslaved her body, but suppressed her power. Now that it was gone, the strength of a warrior returned to her veins. The doorway burst open, alien guards rushing inside, their weapons raised, their armor shining in the dim light. The soldier aimed his rifle, but before he could fire, the girl leapt forward with a speed that stole his breath. Her movements were fluid, deadly, like fire dancing through the air. One guard fell with a broken weapon arm. Another slammed into the wall, crushed by invisible force. The soldier lowered his weapon slowly, realizing he was not the rescuer here, but the witness of something far greater. When the last guard collapsed, the chamber fell silent again. The alien girl turned back to him, her chest rising and falling with sharp breaths, her eyes wild with fire. "This is what your choice has done," she said, pointing at the broken bodies on the ground. "You tore the collar, you woke the bond, and now their whole army will come for us." The soldier stepped closer, his voice steady despite the storm inside him. "Then we run," he said. "We fight, we survive." She looked at him for a long moment, her face unreadable. Then she lowered her gaze. "You do not understand. Human, I cannot run from you. I cannot betray you. I cannot leave you. the bond will not allow it. Her voice softened, breaking like fragile glass. You are not my jailer, but you are my fate. The soldier felt the weight of her words sink into his bones. He had come into this camp alone, wounded and lost, and yet he had walked into something greater than war. She was not just another prisoner, not just another casualty. She was now his shadow, his blade, his curse, and his salvation. Outside, the night roared with voices, the Empire's soldiers gathering for the hunt. Inside, the soldier and the alien girl stood in silence, their fates tied together by a bond neither had chosen. But as he met her eyes again, he felt a strange fire kindle in his chest. Not fear, not regret, but something that felt dangerously close to destiny. The night outside the ruined camp was no longer silent. Drums of alarm echoed through the broken hills, and the air carried the sharp cry of alien hunters. The soldier tightened his grip on his weapon, sweat cold against his neck. He had faced battles before, but this was different. This was survival against an army that would not stop. Beside him, the alien girl stood tall, her chains shattered, her collar gone, her eyes glowing with a fierce light. She was no longer the fragile prisoner he had found in the cage. She was something else now, something powerful, dangerous, yet strangely bound to him. "Follow me," she whispered, her voice cutting through the chaos. She moved like a shadow, swift and silent, guiding him through the ruins of the camp. The soldier tried to keep up, his boots crunching against the dirt, his ears catching the sound of footsteps behind them. They were being hunted already, the guards spreading out like wolves chasing prey. They darted through collapsed walls, past broken war machines half buried in ash. The alien girl's steps were sure, as if she knew every path, even in the dark. When he stumbled, she pulled him forward, her grip strong, her eyes never looking back. The soldier realized then, she was not just running for herself, she was running for him too. Bound by the law, she could not escape. A shout split the night, followed by the flash of weapons fire. Blue bolts tore through the air, striking the walls around them, spraying sparks into the shadows. The soldier dropped low, returning fire with sharp bursts, his rifle glowing hot in his hands. One guard fell, another took cover, but more poured in, their numbers endless. The alien girl leapt forward, her body moving with grace and violence. She grabbed one attacker by the throat, slamming him into the wall, then spun and kicked another to the ground. Her movements were not human, faster, sharper, filled with strength no collar could have contained. "Keep moving," she hissed, pulling him again. They reached the edge of the camp, where the land dropped into a canyon carved by years of war. A broken bridge stretched across, half destroyed, its beams groaning in the wind. The soldier stared at it, doubt crawling up his spine. "It won't hold," he said. "It will," she replied coldly. "It must." Together they ran onto the bridge, the wood and metal creaking beneath their weight. Behind them, more guards surged into view, shouting, their weapons firing wild. The soldier fired back, each shot echoing into the canyon, each step closer to collapse. Halfway across, the bridge shuddered, one beam snapping and plunging into the darkness below. The soldier nearly lost his balance, but the girl's hand caught his arm, steadying him. Her grip was unshakable, her eyes burning with determination. "Do not stop," she said, her voice like iron. They reached the other side, just as the bridge gave way, collapsing into the canyon with a roar. The hunters on the far side stopped, their shouts lost in the wind, unable to follow. For the first time, silence returned, broken only by the soldier's ragged breath. He dropped to his knees, his chest heaving, his weapon heavy in his hands. The alien girl stood beside him, watching the ruins of the bridge fall into the shadows. Her expression was unreadable, caught between pride and sorrow. "You see now," she whispered, "they will never stop hunting us. You broke the collar, and now you are part of this war, whether you wish it or not." The soldier looked up at her, his eyes meeting hers in the dim light. He wanted to argue, to say he never asked for this, never wanted to be her master. But the words died on his tongue, because deep inside, he knew the truth. Walking away was no longer an option. Their bond was sealed, their fates tied, and running was all they could do for now. She turned away from the canyon, her voice softer now, almost like a confession. You do not know what it means to carry me. Human, my people call it a curse, a bond that binds souls forever, but sometimes it becomes something else, something even greater than chains. He frowned, his mind racing, but before he could ask, she was already walking ahead. Come, she said, the night is ours, but the dawn will bring hunters again, and if you cannot keep up, neither of us will survive. The soldier rose, his body aching, his spirit torn. He followed her into the wasteland, the stars watching above like silent witnesses. He did not know where this path would lead, but he knew one thing for certain. He was no longer just a soldier, no longer just a man. He was now something more, something bound, something fated, and though fear pressed against him, a strange fire burned in his chest. The fire of destiny, the fire of survival, the fire of something he could not yet name. The wasteland stretched endless before them, broken stone and silent shadows under the pale light of two moons. The soldier followed the alien girl, his steps heavy, his body aching, yet his eyes never leaving her form. She walked as if she knew every path, every crack in the rocks, her head high, her movements steady. There was no collar now, no chains, but still he felt the weight of something stronger pulling between them. It was not visible, not physical, but it was there, binding them like an invisible thread. Hours passed in silence, broken only by the wind whispering through the ruins. The soldier finally spoke, his voice low, tired. What are you really? You fight like no one I've ever seen. You break chains as if they were nothing. You knew the guards would fear you. Who were you before the collar? The alien girl stopped, her shoulders stiff, her gaze fixed on the horizon. For a long moment she said nothing, as if the question itself was a wound. Then, slowly, she turned to face him, her eyes glowing faintly, her voice heavy with memory. I was a commander, she said, each word sharp. My people once ruled fleets, armies, worlds. I was sworn to protect them, sworn to fight for freedom. But the Empire crushed us. They burned our cities, they broke our warriors. And when I refused to kneel, they bound me in iron light. They made me wear the collar. Her voice trembled for the first time, not with fear, but with rage. They paraded me as a trophy, a commander reduced to a slave, my strength stolen, my will chained. Year after year, I dreamed of breaking free, but the collar was unbreakable until you touched it. The soldier listened, his chest tightening. She was not just some captive. She was once a leader, a force of fire, someone whose very name must have carried fear and respect. And yet the Empire had reduced her to silence, had locked her away in the dark. It made sense now why she carried both pride and sorrow, why freedom tasted like ash. Why didn't they kill you? He asked quietly. Her eyes narrowed, her jaw tight. Because killing me would have made me a martyr, alive, collared. I was a warning, a message to my people. This is what happens when you resist. This is what happens when you fight. She looked away, her fists clenching, but they never understood. Even chained, I remained unbroken inside, and now the bond ties me to you. And I do not know if it is curse or salvation. The soldier stepped closer, his voice firm. I don't want to be your master. I don't want this law of yours to chain you again. But she shook her head slowly, her silver hair glimmering in the moonlight. You don't understand. It is not about want. It is deeper. It is older. When you tore the collar, you tore a chain written into the blood of my people, my soul linked to yours in ways you cannot see. Even if you walk away, I will follow. Even if you cast me aside, I cannot betray you. My fate is sealed. He fell silent, the weight of her words pressing down like stone. He had tried to free her, but instead he had inherited a bond older than his world. Part of him wanted to deny it, to reject it, but another part, quiet and dangerous, felt the truth. Every time he looked into her eyes, something stirred in him, something more than fear, something more than duty. The night deepened, and they found shelter in the hollow of a ruined tower, its walls cracked but still holding. The soldier lit a small fire, the flames pushing back the cold. She sat across from him, her eyes fixed on the sparks rising into the night. For the first time since he met her, she looked almost fragile, almost human. "Do you hate me for it?" she asked suddenly, her voice barely above a whisper. "For binding you without choice?" He shook his head, though the question struck deep. "No," he said softly, "I don't hate you. I hate the chains they put on you. I hate the empire that made this bond in the first place, but I don't hate you." Her eyes softened, her lips parting as if to speak, but no words came. Instead, she lowered her gaze, a shadow of relief flickering across her face. For a while they sat in silence, the fire crackling, the wind sighing through broken stone. The soldier felt the exhaustion of the night pressing down, but he could not close his eyes, because every time he looked at her, he saw not just the prisoner he had freed, but the commander she had once been, and he wondered, not for the first time, if destiny had brought him here not by accident, but by design. Outside, the stars watched cold and silent. Inside, two souls bound by law and fate sat together. Enemies no longer, strangers no more. And though the war roared beyond the horizon, in that ruined tower, something else began to take shape. Not slavery, not mastery, but something waiting, dangerous, and unspoken. The ruins were silent at dawn, but silence never lasted long in the reach of the empire. The soldier woke to the sound of distant engines, a low hum that carried through the stone like a warning. He rose quickly, gripping his rifle, his eyes scanning the horizon. Beside him, the alien girl was already awake, her gaze sharp, her body tense. She did not need to see the ships to know what they were. She could feel them, hunting, searching. "They know," she whispered, her voice like steel. "The bond has broken their law, and the Empire will not allow it. They will come with hunters, with machines, with fire." The soldier adjusted the strap of his weapon, his jaw set. "Then we'll fight." She turned her head toward him, her eyes filled with something he could not read. Pity, anger, and perhaps a hint of respect. "You do not understand," she said. "They're not coming for me. They are coming for us. Your face, your name, your very soul is now written in their records. You're no longer a soldier in their war. You are the man who shattered their chain, and that makes you a threat to their power." Before he could reply, the ground shook with the roar of descending craft. Dust and ash whipped into the air, the shadow of a hunter ship passing overhead like a dark wing. The soldier raised his rifle, but the girl pushed his arm down. "Not yet," she said sharply. "If we fire too soon, they will burn this whole land to ash. We must move now." They ran through the ruins, their footsteps echoing against broken walls. Behind them, the ships descended, releasing squads of armored hunters, their voices sharp, their weapons glowing. The soldier fired a burst, one hunter falling, another stumbling back. But for each one that fell, more poured in, their numbers endless. The alien girl leapt forward, her hands crackling with energy, her body moving like a storm. She struck one hunter with a force that shattered his armor, spun to throw another across the rubble. The soldier watched in awe, realizing again that she was not just a freed captive. She was a weapon the Empire had feared. Still, the enemy pressed closer, their voices rising in unison. The soldier and the alien girl fought side by side, their movements different but in strange harmony. He covered her from a distance, his rifle sharp and fast, while she struck like lightning, breaking lines before they could close in. And though the fight raged, something deeper stirred between them. Every time her eyes met his, every time his hands pulled her away from danger, the bond grew tighter, not as chains but as fire. When the last hunter fell, silence returned, broken only by their ragged breaths. But the silence was not victory, it was warning. The girl stepped forward, her gaze fixed on the horizon where the sky glowed with the engines of more ships. "They're testing us," she said, "sending pawns, watching how we fight. The true storm is yet to come." The soldier wiped sweat from his brow, his voice steady. "Then let it come. We'll face it together." She turned to him sharply, her eyes narrowing. "You speak as if you have a choice, but you do not. The bond forces me to protect you, to fight beside you. I cannot betray you, even if I wanted to." Her voice softened suddenly, almost like a confession. "And yet, for the first time in years, I do not know if I want to." The soldier froze, the weight of her words striking deeper than any blade. There was no time to answer, no time to think, because the roar of another ship split the air. This one was larger, heavier, carrying not hunters, but machines. The ground shook as metallic beasts stepped out, their frames towering, their weapons glowing red. The soldier's chest tightened, his rifle suddenly feeling small. But the alien girl stepped forward, her chin high, her voice like thunder. "They send their machines because they fear us, and they should, because together we are more than they understand." The machines advanced, their heavy steps echoing through the wasteland. The soldier and the alien girl braced themselves, side by side, no longer strangers, no longer enemies. The battle ahead was not just survival. It was a message to the Empire, a message written in fire and blood. And as the first machine raised its weapon, the alien girl whispered words that sent a chill through the soldier's soul. "You broke my chains, human, but in doing so, you bound us both, and now, in this war, I will not kneel to them. I will only kneel to you." The soldier's heart pounded, the bond between them burning brighter than the flames of war. And as the machines roared, he realized something terrifying and undeniable. This was no longer just her fight. It was theirs, and neither of them could turn back. The night was gone, and the sky burned with the fire of engines. The soldier and the alien girl stood among broken machines, smoke rising around them like shadows. They had survived the wave of hunters. They had torn down the Empire's machines, but survival had come at a cost. The soldier's arm bled, his body heavy, his rifle nearly empty. Beside him, the alien girl swayed on her feet, her strength drained, her power trembling like fading lightning. For a moment, silence lingered, broken only by the crackle of burning wreckage. Then a voice echoed across the wasteland, deep, cold, and cruel. It came from the sky, carried by the Empire's ship that hovered above. "Human," the voice thundered, "you have broken a law older than your species. You have bound yourself to one who was meant to kneel. But the Empire is merciful. Surrender her, walk away, and you may live. Resist, and you will be erased." The soldier's chest tightened, his grip on his rifle weak. He glanced at the alien girl, her silver hair tangled, her skin marked by battle, her eyes burning with defiance even in exhaustion. She met his gaze without speaking, as if daring him to choose. For a long moment, the world held its breath. He could walk away. He could end this war before it consumed him. If he left her, the Empire would take her back. The bond would be theirs to control, and his life, though marked, would continue. It was the safe choice, the rational choice, the choice any soldier would make. But his heart whispered otherwise. He remembered the cell, the collar, the fire in her eyes, even when chained. He remembered her voice, her confession by the fire, her vow to fight beside him, not because of law, but because of something deeper. And he remembered the way she had fought, not just for herself, but for him. The thought of leaving her tore through him like a blade. The Empire's voice boomed again. "Choose wisely, human, surrender, and you live. Resist, and you die with her." The soldier's hand trembled, but not with fear, with certainty. He stepped forward, raising his weapon, his voice steady, his words sharp as steel. "I will not walk away. If she fights, I fight. If she falls, I fall. We stand together." The alien girl's eyes widened, her lips parting, her chest rising sharply. For the first time, her proud mask broke, and her voice trembled. "You would choose this? You would choose me, even knowing what it means." He nodded, his gaze unshaken. I don't want a slave, I don't want chains, I want a partner. And if this bond ties us, then let it tie us as equals. Her breath caught, her hands trembling, and for a moment she seemed more fragile than fierce. Then slowly, her lips curved into something that was not quite a smile, but closer to hope than she had shown before. Then you are not my master, she whispered. You are my equal, my fate, my forever. The ship above roared, beams of light cutting through the smoke. The Empire had heard his choice, and now their fury descended. Dozens of hunters dropped from the craft, their weapons glowing, their voices rising in unison. The soldier raised his rifle. The alien girl stepped beside him, her eyes blazing. The bond between them flared like fire, no longer a chain but a force. Together, they struck, moving as one. Her power cracked through the ground. His bullets cut through the air. Where he faltered, she shielded him. Where she stumbled, he pulled her back. They were no longer two warriors fighting side by side. They were one, bound not by law, but by choice. The battle raged, the hunters falling one by one, their shouts swallowed by fire and thunder. And though the soldier's body screamed with pain, his heart burned with something greater than fear. He had made his choice, and there was no turning back. When the last hunter fell, silence returned once more. The ship hovered above, but it did not descend. Instead, the voice spoke again, cold and sharp. So be it, human, you have chosen defiance, and for that, the Empire will burn your name into history. You and your bonded will not be forgotten. You'll be hunted forever. The ship turned, vanishing into the clouds, leaving only the echo of its threat. The soldier lowered his rifle, his breath heavy, his body weak. The alien girl stepped closer, her hand brushing against his arm, her voice softer than ever. You had the chance to leave, but you chose me, she said, her eyes glimmering. From this moment, I am not your slave. I am your bond, your blade, your shadow, your equal. He looked at her, his chest tight, his voice quiet. Then whatever comes, we face it together. And in that moment, beneath the burning sky, the bond between them transformed. No longer master and servant, no longer chains and freedom, but something greater, something eternal. The wasteland burned under the pale light of the moons. Ash drifted through the air like falling snow, carrying the memory of battle. The soldier and the alien girl stood side by side, their bodies marked with wounds, their weapons heavy in their hands. The ship of the Empire had left, but the promise of war lingered. The enemy would return, stronger, fiercer, unwilling to let their defiance stand. Yet in that silence, something else stirred, something greater than fear. The soldier looked at the alien girl, her silver hair tangled, her face streaked with dust and blood. Yet her eyes burned brighter than any flame. She was no longer the prisoner he had found, no longer the chained commander he had freed. She was his equal, his partner, his bond, and though the world threatened to crush them, he felt a strength inside him that could not be broken. The ground trembled, the air shivered, and from the horizon came the storm. Dozens of ships, dark as night, their engines roaring, their lights burning through the sky. The Empire had not retreated. They had returned with their full wrath. Legions of hunters descended, their armor gleaming, their voices rising like a chant of doom. Machines followed, towering, their steps shaking the land. It was an army meant not to capture, but to erase. The soldier raised his rifle, his voice steady despite the storm. This is it, he whispered, no more running. The alien girl stepped closer, her hand brushing against his, her voice strong and unshaken. We fight, she said, not as master and slave, but as one, and if we fall together. The first waves struck like thunder, hunters rushing forward, their weapons glowing. The soldier fired, each shot cutting through the night, his aim sharp, his stance unbroken. Beside him, the alien girl unleashed her power, lightning sparking from her hands, the earth itself trembling beneath her command. Together they moved like a storm, his fire covering her advance, her strength shielding his weakness. For every enemy that came, they answered as one. The machines advanced, their weapons roaring, beams of red fire cutting through stone and sky. The soldier leapt aside, his rifle tearing through their joints. The alien girl charged, her body glowing with energy, striking with force that shattered steel. One machine fell, then another, crashing into the earth with a roar. The Empire's army faltered, their chants breaking, their formation shattered. But the storm was endless, and their bodies grew heavy. The soldier stumbled, his breath sharp, his wounds burning. The alien girl caught him, pulling him to his feet, her voice fierce. "Stand, human, do not give them the satisfaction of seeing you fall." He looked at her, his chest tight, and in that moment he saw not a warrior, not an alien, but his fate. He rose again, his grip steady, his heart burning. The battle raged until the night itself seemed to cry. And at its peak, when the last of their strength burned like fire, they stood together, unshaken. The hunters lay broken, the machines shattered, the ground littered with ruin. The Empire's ships hovered above, their lights flickering, their silence heavy. They had sent an army to crush two souls, and still those two stood. The voice of the Empire echoed once more, colder than before. "You cannot win. Human, your defiance is meaningless. Your bond is weakness. One day it will break you." The soldier lifted his rifle, his voice loud, filled with fire. "You are wrong. This bond is not weakness. It is strength. It is hope. It is eternity." The alien girl stepped beside him, her eyes blazing, her voice carrying across the wasteland. "He tore away my collar. He bound me not with chains, but with choice. I will never kneel to you again. I kneel only to him, and not as a slave, but as his equal." The ships turned, retreating into the night, their shadows fading, their threat lingering. The war was not over, but the battle was theirs. The soldier lowered his weapon, his breath heavy, his body trembling. The alien girl stepped closer, her hand touching his shoulder, her voice soft. "You gave me freedom, and in return, I give you eternity." He looked at her, his chest filled with something he could not name. Perhaps it was love, perhaps it was destiny, perhaps it was both. But he knew one thing, one truth stronger than war, stronger than chains, stronger than death itself. They were bound, not by law, not by force, but by choice, by fire, by forever. And as they walked into the night, the stars above watched in silence. A human and an alien, once strangers, once enemies, now bound in a bond that would never break. Not master and slave, not captor and captive, but partners, warriors, and something eternal.